Good evening. My name is Steve Henry, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Paula Cooper Gallery this evening for our program of Jatavia Gary's. Her exhibition, You Smell Like Outside, and tonight will be a performance and a panel discussion. We will be starting with the performance by Jatavia and Autumn Knight, followed by the panel discussion, which will include Jatavia, Kaitlyn Greenidge, and Autumn Womack. And afterwards, the film will screen again. So welcome, enjoy, and questions will be taken after the panel. Bye.
I don't think the mic is on. Slide! 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's start over.
Okay.
Slide! 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's wait till these people come in.
Come on in.
Come on in.
Have a seat.
I need to catch my breath. Let me be honest.
Catch it.
Here's the house.
Here's the house. It's green and white.
It is green and white. It has a red door.
There's a red door.
It's very pretty here.
It's very pretty.
Here's the family.
Mother, father, Dick, Jane.
Mother,
father.
Dick, and Jane.
Dick and Jane.
Live in the green and white
All
house.
live in the green and white house.
Green and white house. They are very happy.
They're very happy.
See Jane. See Jane, she has a red dress.
Jane has on a red dress and she wants to play.
She wants to play.
Who will play
Who will
with
play
Jane?
with Jane?
See the cat?
See the cat?
It goes.
See the cat?
It goes. Meow.
Meow.
It goes meow.
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 Meow. Come.
Come play with
Come
Jane.
and play with Jane.
The kitten will
The
not
kitten.
play with
The
Jane.
kitten will not play. See.
Mm.
Hmm.
Mm. Mother. Mother is very nice.
Mother is very nice.
She's very nice.
She's very
Everybody
nice.
loves her.
It's very nice.
She's
Mother's
very nice. Laugh, mother, laugh.
Will you play with Jane? Mother, will you play with Jane?
No.
Laugh.
Laugh, mother,
Laugh,
laugh.
mother, laugh.
See father, he is
See
big
father.
and strong.
He is big and strong. See father.
He's big and strong.
Father.
Father, will you play with
Father, will
Jane?
you play with Jane?
Father is smiling. Smile, father, smile.
Father is smiling.
Smile,
Smile, father.
Father, smile. See the dog.
Smile.
Bow wow goes
Father,
the dog.
Smile. Dog.
See the dog. Bow wow
Bow
goes the
wow
dog.
goes the
Woof!
dog. Bow wow goes the dog.
Do you want to play?
Do you want to play?
Do you want to play with Jane?
Do you want to play? Do you want to play with Jane? Do you want to play with Jane? See the dog run.
Run, dog, run.
See the dog run.
Run, dog, run.
Run, dog, run. Look.
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 Look. Look. Look.
Here comes a friend.
Look.
Is that your friend?
Look.
Here
Look.
comes a friend.
Here comes a friend. The friend will play with Jane.
The friend will play with Jane.
They will play a good game.
A good game. The game's cool.
A good game.
Play, Jane.
Play. Play, Jane.
Play, Jane.
Play.
Play, Jane.
Here's a house on Rosedale and Scott in 3rd Ward. It is green and white. It is white and white and wood. It has a red door. It has a white door. It has a screen door for flies and mosquitoes. Do not let it slam. Go in or stay your ass out. 'Cause you letting my air condition out.
You letting my air condition out.
It is very pretty. It is not pretty at all. What it is it is enough. And not that either. Here is the family. Mother, father, Dick, and Jane. Here is the family. Mama, Granny, Jeannie, and 2 holy bastards. No daddy. They live in the green and white house. The house is actually yellowing from the Texas sun. They're very happy. They are actually undulating between misery and the most joy any Negro has ever seen. See middle name as reference. See Jane, see Joy. She has a red dress. She wants to play. She wants to play hopscotch or break away or pull apart. Break away or pull apart is a game fashioned after that scene in Color Purple when Mista is breaking apart Nettie and Celie. My biracial cousin, of course, gets to be Nettie. Who will play with Jane? Who will play with Joy? See the cat? The cat goes, meow, meow, come and play. See the stray cat under the house? Not my good milk, not my good tuna fish. For the cat who is not pet. Come play with Jane. The kitten will not play. See, mother is very, very nice. See, mother is very nice when mother is not tired. Mother, will you play with Jane? Joy, will you play with Joy? Mother? Mother will not play with Jane, Joy. Mother cannot play anymore. Mother laughs. Laugh, mother. Laugh. Laugh, mother. Mother, laugh. Mother is funny. Mother is the funniest motherfucker I know. New. See, Father, he is big and strong. Will you play with Jane, Father? Father, 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 you ain't nobody daddy. Father, 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 Father. Father is smiling. Smile, Father, smile. Do not remember the smile of Father. See the dog. Bow wow goes the dog. Granny did not want the dog, but was sad anyway when it was run over in the street. Do you want to play? Do you want to play with joy? See the dog run, 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 run dog, run dog. Look, look, here comes a hot comb. And Granny with the grease on the back of her hand, the blue grease on the back of the hand, the blue magic.
Blue magic.
Yes, blue magic. A friend will play with Jane. Maybe Brent or Terrence or the albino kid that lives around the corner on McGregor. Or Erica or Lamont. A friend will play with joy. They will play a good game. Play. Play, joy. Play.
Here is the house, it's mauve and blue. Is it mauve or mauve? There are flowers, it's in Cedar Hill. Here is the family, Mama, Daddy, Jamel, and Tavi. All live in the mauve and blue house. They doing all right. See Tavi, she has a burgundy dress. She wants to play. Who will play with Tavi? See the dog, it snaps one day and breaks the skin on your hand. You are bleeding. Come and play with Tavi. That dog ain't playing with you, girl. See Mama, Mama ripping and running. She busy. Mama, will you laugh? Laugh, Mama, laugh. See the hamster, it eats its babies in a postpartum fit. Laugh, Tavi, laugh. Who will play with Tavi? Not them hamsters, that's for damn sure. See Daddy, Daddy's sick. He ain't gonna make it. Peel me an orange. Tavi peels oranges for skeletons. See the dog run, run, dog, run. In the mauve and blue house, they're absolutely miserable, but they laugh plenty. Laugh, Tavi, laugh. See Jane, I mean Tavi. Where the hell is Tavi and who is James? Y'all daddy coming to get y'all this weekend, thank God. She wants to play. Who will play with Tavi? See the cat, it goes meow, meow. Mama hates cats, but we had 3 dogs, and one of them got ran over right in front of my motherfucking face. Come and play with Jane. Let's play dead. The kid will not play. Shh, play dead. The kid plays dead. I heard she and her brother play with dolls. Laugh, brother, laugh. You see what I'm saying? Look, here comes a friend. The friend will play with Tavi. They will play a good game. They will play a dangerous game. They have knives as tongues. Play, Tavi. Play.
Here is the house. Here's the house. Here's the house. And you know how they had them house on bricks sometimes? That's the house. When you had them cedar bricks, house on them concrete bricks. Okay? And not for the hurricane either, but just because. Okay? Here's the house. Here's the house. Here's the house. Here's the house.
It's green and white.
Green and white. Is it green and white?
I think so.
Is it green and white?
It's green and white.
It's green and white.
The door is red for sure.
But I think the green is It's either olive green, real ugly, like dookie
It's
green.
green and white, girl.
It's green.
What the
Okay,
fuck?
I know, but there were so many greens and so many whites. It's green and it's white.
Yeah.
It's green and white. It's
It has
olive green and it's ecru. It has a thing. It has a red door.
It has a red
door.
motherfucking door,
Like
Autumn.
Elizabeth Arden. You know my mother used to wear Elizabeth Arden perfume all the time. Red door. Elizabeth Arden. Old school. It has a red door. It has a red door.
Here's the family.
It is very pretty.
Mother, father, Dick,
Very, very
Jane.
pretty. It's very pretty here. It's very mother, father, Dick, Jane, Dick, Jane, 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 Dick, Jane.
Dick and Jane.
Dick and Jane. Dick in your life. You need dick in your life. And you need some dick, and you need some dick, and you need some dick, and you need dick.
And you get a dick.
And you get a dick. Mother, father, Dick and Jane.
Live in the green. We said green.
Green
and white house.
Not an apartment complex.
Right. They live in that.
They live in that
house.
motherfucking house.
Right.
Okay. Don't live in apartments no more.
Homeowners.
Okay. Home. Okay. The American dream. Hope a dream of the slave. Yes. A green and white house.
See Jane.
Oh, see Jane. And they're very, very, very happy.
See Jane.
They're very, very, very,
See, Jane.
very happy. They are so happy. They're happy like those people on TV. They are so happy. They are happy like they are prize winners on Ed McMahon's prize-winning show. I forgot the name of that show. They are happy. See Jane.
See Jane.
See Jane. Look
She has
at
a red
Jane.
dress.
She has a red dress on.
She
Yes,
has a red
baby.
dress.
Yes, she has a red dress.
Sickening. Sickening,
Yes.
Jane. Work,
The
Jane.
dress. Work, Jane.
Work,
Dress.
Jane.
Never seen a dress so red. Never seen a dress so red. Never seen a dress. Never seen a dress. Never seen a dress so red. 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 Red, Jane. Red. Red. The color is red.
Meow.
Meow. Who will play with Jane?
The cat.
The cat.
Meow.
Meow.
Meow, 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 meow. See the cat, it goes meow, meow.
It goes meow.
It goes meow.
Meow. Come and play.
Come and play.
Come and play,
Come and
Jane.
play.
Come and play. I'm just a cat. Come and play with me, Jane. Play with the cat. Come and play. Come and play.
The kitten will not play.
The kitten will not play. The kitten do not play.
The kitten won't play.
The kitten won't play. The kitten will not play. You see? You see? You see? You see, the kitten will not play. Mother.
Mother?
Mother. Mama.
Mama!
Mama. Mama.
Mama!
Mama. Mama.
Girl, sit your ass down.
Mama. Mama.
Mama.
Mama.
Mama.
Mama. Mama. Mama. Mama. Ma. You see,
Mother's very nice.
Mother's very nice. You see, Mother is very,
Mother's very nice.
Very, very nice.
I think the mother's very nice.
I think Mother is very nice. I think that Mother,
the mother, she's nice.
she's nice. Mother's
Mother's nice.
Mother's nice.
Mother.
Mother.
Mother's
nice.
Mother's nice.
Mother's nice.
Mother's
baby.
nice.
Mother's nice, baby. There's no.
If you're good to mama,
Mama will be good to you.
she'll be good to you.
Yes, baby.
If you're good to mama,
Mama will be nice to you.
she'll be good to
If
you.
you're nice to Mother, Mother will be nice.
Mother's
to
very
you.
nice. Laugh, mother, laugh.
Laugh.
Laugh, mother, laugh. Mary, Mother Mary,
Mother Mary, Mother May I,
Mother Mary,
Mother
Mary.
Some people are childless, but they do not have a mother. Mother.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Mary.
You see, mother's very nice.
Mother's very nice.
Nice mother. Mother.
Mother.
Mother.
Mother.
Mother, will you play with Jane? Mama, you didn't hear the question.
I heard.
Mama, will you play with Jane?
Laugh, mother, laugh.
Mama, will you play with Jane?
Laugh, mother, laugh.
Mama, will you play with Jane?
Laugh, mother, laugh.
Mother, will you play with Jane?
Maferafu no shun.
Mother, will you play with Jane?
Maferafu no shun.
Mother, please play with Jane.
Maferafu no shun.
Mother, please play with Jane.
Maferafu ni
Mother,
monja.
please play with Jane. Mama, please.
Maferafu ni monja.
Mama, please play with me, please.
Maferafu no
Mama,
shun.
please. Mama, play with me. Mama, play with me,
Maferafu ni
please.
monja.
Please.
I'm here,
Please.
goddammit! I said Maferafu ya monja! And Oshun. And Yamoja. And Oshun. And Yamoja.
Yemoja,
And
Yemoja
Oshun.
olodo, Yemenja, Yame olodo, Yemenja, Yemenja olodo, Yemenja, Yemenja olodo. See,
Father's big and strong.
Father's big and strong.
He's handsome, the dad.
Yeah, I know. He's really great. He's
handsome,
got a
the dad.
haircut. He's got a shave. He's really looking good.
got a good job,
Father,
too.
you clean up nice when you come around.
He's got a good job, too.
Yeah, okay. He's got a job. I heard he's got a job off working on an oil rig. He's working on the offshore again.
Father's big and strong.
Big and strong. He's down in
and strong.
Galveston working on the rig. I heard he down working at the port.
Mm-hmm.
Father is big and strong.
Big and strong.
Father is big and strong. Will you play with Jane, Father?
Father is smiling. Smile, Father, smile.
Oh, baby girl, I gotta get out of here.
Father is smiling. Smile, Father.
Okay, I left you some money.
Smile.
I left you some money for some toys, baby girl.
Smile.
I left you some money for some McDonald's.
Smile, Father, smile.
Yeah, I'm sorry, baby girl. I gotta leave you. Father.
Moving on.
Father.
Moving
Father. Okay, moving on. Okay, you see the dog. The dog. A big dog. See the dog.
Sorry.
See the dog. Bow wow goes the dog.
Bow wow wow, you be, bow wow, you be,
Bow wow wow, you be, bow wow, you be,
Hey.
bow wow, you be, bow wow, you be, bow wow, you be, bow wow, you be,
Hey. Little bow wow.
Shout out to Lil Bow Wow.
That was a. That was.
For Little Bow Wow. Bow wow goes the dog.
Goes the dog.
Do you want to play?
Do you want to play?
Dog.
Big dog.
Woof. Woof.
Run, dog, run.
Run. Do you want to play with Jane? See the dog run? See the dog run? Did you see the dog run?
Lay down with dogs, get up with fleas.
Lay down,
Quit playing with that dog.
Dog you out, and then you see
Quit
what
playing with that
happens.
dog.
Okay, that
Can I
dog
pet
gonna
that
bite
dog?
you. No, that's not your dog. That's they dog. I told you not get no dog. See the dog run.
Run, dog, run.
Run into traffic, dog.
Run, dog, run.
Run, dog. You ain't got no leash.
Run, dog, run.
Run, dog.
Run, dog, run.
Run, dog.
Look! Well, look at her.
Look.
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 Look at here. Look at here. Look at here.
Here comes a friend.
Here comes a friend.
That's your friend?
Thank you for being.
That's your friend?
That's your friend. That's your little friend. Oh, that's your friend.
That ain't your friend.
Okay, that's your friend. Okay, your friend. Or is that your friend?
Right.
Okay, what kind of friend is this?
I'm not one of your little friends.
I'm not one of your little friends.
I'm definitely not one of your little friends.
I'm not to be played with. Don't talk to me like you talk to your little friends. I'm not one of your little friends.
I'm not your friend.
I'm your mama. I'm your mama. Okay? I
your
am
mama.
the mother. You are the child.
Mama's very nice.
Not your friend. Mother's very nice.
Mother's very nice.
Okay? I'm the only mother you got.
You only get one mama.
You only get one mama. You only get one mama. You only get one mama.
You only get one mama.
Mother's very nice.
Laugh, mama, laugh.
Laugh.
Laugh, mama, laugh. Laugh, mama, laugh. They will play a good game.
They would play a good game. They will play a good game. They will play with Jane and Tavi and Joy. They will play with Tavi and Joy and Jane. They will play.
They will play a good game.
They will play a good game.
They will play a good
They
game.
will play a good game. They'll play a good game. Play. Play, Jane. Play.
Play, Jane.
Play. 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 Oops. Won't take too long.
Can we get a little water up here for our illustrious guests? Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Just a quick note. There's also going to be we're going to screen the film again after if you want, but at the end. So if you've already seen it, you can leave. But if you want to stay and catch it again from the beginning of the loop, we'll hit that thing and you'll be able to see it. I hope I don't have any marigolds stuck to my lip gloss. We're gonna move through it anyway.
Good evening. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
My name is Kaitlyn Greenidge. I'm a novelist and a nonfiction writer as well. Jatavi and I first met at the Radcliffe Institute about 3 or 4 years ago. And I got to know her and her amazing work there. And Autumn and I just met a few months ago. I was interviewing her for an article that's going to come out in Harper's Bazaar in March about Toni Morrison's time in a writing group full of sort of all the big names of Black feminist novelists that we know today. They all started a writing group in the 70s before they were famous called the Sisterhood. And so I spoke with Autumn sort of about that photo. Autumn Womack, you are from Princeton University. You've been working on the Morrison archives that are at Princeton that are opening in March.
On Tuesday.
Oh, excuse me, on Tuesday. And the archives cover what years of her life?
1950s or so until her death.
Wonderful. Wow. Okay. So we are here to talk about this wonderful exhibition that's here. I'm going to talk. The questions I'm going to ask both of you are sort of about artistic process, just to kind of put this all into perspective for Morrison herself. I was sort of thinking as we were sort of sitting here, and Morrison constructing an archive. Jatavia, you constructing an archive of your work as well. I know that the archives are important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking, I was thinking about how when Morrison first published The Bluest Eye, the number of Black women novelists was extremely small who were published. And then on top of that, the number of Black women novelists who were allowed to publish a second novel, I think it was 2, literally 2. Anne Petrie sort of went back and did the work to try and track that. And so knowing that that's where the world in which she started writing and also the world in which we are still published today, I think the other statistic that always blows my mind is when Morrison left Random House in the mid-'80s, they did not publish another Black woman author for another 9 years. So that's the world of sort of vanishing work, intermittent work that we're talking about, in which building archives and building your artistic practice becomes even more important. Mm-hmm. And so that's my entryway to begin sort of like talking about what we're going to talk about here. And one of the things, of course, in the archives, you have Morrison's notes around The Bluest Eye, her process around writing The Bluest Eye. One of the things that was so fascinating to me is that you mentioned that she thought about it in different forms. She outlined it as a play at a certain point. She outlined it, I think, in the letters that you shared between her and her editor. They talked about it as a novella. They talked about it as a bunch of different forms outside of a novel. And of course, if you look over the course of her work, she was interested in working in other forms. She wrote librettos, she wrote operas, she wrote plays. Many of the Black women novelists who she was in conversation with were interested in other art forms as well. Toni Kade-Bambara famously was also a filmmaker. Ntozake Shange was a poet, a playwright, and a novelist. That moving between forms was sort of just a given for this cohort, which is very different from today, from you as an interdisciplinary artist, and having to sort of explain your work, understanding why.
Why can't you stay in one lane?
Exactly. So Autumn, I'm wondering if you can talk about that interdisciplinary nature of her work that you can find in the archives, and then Jatavia, if you can talk a little bit about what moving through disciplines sort of brings to your work. I'm thinking there's a great quote from Christina Sharp in The Wake where she talks about we must become undisciplined, sort of what happens when you open yourself up to all of these different forms.
I love that moment from Christina's book. I think it's really interesting because we think of The Bluest Eye as this book that just comes to all of us and has come to all of us at various different moments, and it has been so important, and it is what it is, and it's so much more than what it is. But when we think of it as this bound text, But one of the earliest ways that Morrison talked about it, and this lives in the archive and in other interviews that she's given, is as a short story. And then she uses this language of the short story that she was wrestling with or experimenting with in the 50s, and then she kind of pitched it to her editor in the 1960s and said, I have this short story, it might be a really good novel, you let me know. And when she talks about this process, there's a way in which that short story or that idea survives in the bluest sky. So I think it's really important to think about that novel that we have as just a kind of a stop along the way, right? It's one of the very many forms that the work ultimately took. So she played around with short story, and then she drafted it in play form at different moments. And I think we see that life of the play in it when we think about the 4 acts, right? And maybe we can even think about a 5th act of the book as well. But there's something about the way that these different forms are really important for kind of working through the idea, right? Like you needed these different training grounds or rehearsal spaces to think through the question. And I think the thing that's really interesting to me and that I see as kind of at the heart of interdisciplinary work, and I don't think we think of Morrison as somebody who's as interdisciplinary as she is. Am I too far away? A little bit. Okay. I also tend to yell, so I'm always moving back. Is that it was really about the question, right, and the problem, and what form will allow me to think through it and let me try out these different forms. It might be the play, it might be the poem, different narrative voices, and kind of looping through all of these genres, stopping in the novel, and then moving into something else. So she also experimented with theater and with film, poetry, right? What's the form that will allow me to ask this question in kind of different pitches, which I think is a pretty unique way of thinking about her practice.
Yeah, I feel like that's really how, not to compare myself to Toni Morrison, but that it is kind of how I'm moving. I'm a filmmaker and an artist, but ultimately it's kind of conceptual artist who makes films and who is now making neon, who used to be an actress and used to write poetry. So there's this promiscuity there that I feel like is super generative, but I'm thinking about the project itself. What is the container? Whether it is a film, a short film, a longer film, whether it's an object, whether it's a play, maybe it's a script, what is the container that's going to best serve the idea? So it's not to be super wedded to the form. And even if we're talking about one particular genre or one particular discipline like film, even within that discipline, I'm unruly, right? You're seeing stuff that looks like nothing on Netflix, right? You're like, what am I seeing? So this kind of a kind of daring or curious approach to cinematic form as well. I'm trying to put forth the radical idea that they can look however you want them to look, right? Of course, there is a narrative form that's traditional. It's Aristotelian, it's perhaps 3 acts, or maybe it's 5 acts, and maybe it's wrapped up in a really beautiful bow at the end. But then there's something else, right? There are other forms of storytelling that have existed way before Aristotle decided to write, right? And so a lot of my cinematic works are structured via music, via the Black music tradition. And it's a totally different form than, say, a beginning, middle, and end with a rising action and a climax and a denouement. It is a circular form. It's a form that loops. And inside that loop is experimentation. You can always move away from it as long as you can hit that loop again, right? We've all understand the loop if you listen to hip hop, if you listen to the gospel or blues or what have you. It is a guiding principle for a lot of the work. So it's not just about, I'm just gonna only write, young adult novels. No, I'm gonna do whatever it is that is popping up in the brain at that moment, whatever shape it feels best.
Yeah, one of I remember when I first started writing and I would be in writing workshops, I'd always get the note back there's too much repetition. I still get that note all the time when I'm putting a book in for copy edit. It's like, did you mean to repeat this? And it's yes. That's how we speak. We speak in repetition. We speak in call and response. We speak in the meaning of the phrase comes from repeating it over and over and over and over again. And there's a very specific school style of writing that does not, American masculine style of writing that does not understand repetition at all and
Yeah.
thinks it's bad writing.
Same with cinema.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are we seeing that shot again?
Yep.
Right.
What do we need that for?
Yeah. Exactly. Speaking of cinema, speaking of sort of performance, Jatavia, you trained as an actor. You started as an actor.
I did. She was one of those annoying theater kids. Still is. Yes, I went to Performing Arts High School in Dallas.
Mhm.
It's a really great school. Shout out to Booker T. Washington High School for the Performing and Visual Arts in Dallas. Erykah Badu went there.
Mhm.
Nora Jones went there. Roy Hargrove, may rest in peace. It's a really beautiful school, and it kind of saved my life, you know. I think when I think back on my young self, I think about someone who was clinging to the ability to perform at school as a way to kind of self-actualize, but to also recalibrate, shout out to Dozier, to recalibrate the space of my home life, right, which was troubled. And so if I could tap into this thing, right, this thing that kind of gave me a little bit of power, a little bit of agency, and I could hit the reset button a little bit by maybe being funny or maybe redirecting whatever's coming to me. I found that to be really powerful. It also placed me in my body in ways that were necessary at the time. So the theater is, you know, such a beautiful practice, and I'm glad that it was the foundation for me.
Mm-hmm. And Morrison was also an actor. Is that right?
That's right. She was a member of the Howard Players, which was a really important theater club at Howard. So there's these famous photos that you guys may have seen of her and Richard III and, you know, doing this kind of classical theater. But she also talks about it in a really similar way to you, Jatavia, as this kind of other space within an institutional space that allowed her to kind of be in a different kind of community. And also, I really think kind of rehearse different kinds of art making, right? Like there's so many Black women artists who we think of as writers who also move through the theater and theatrical spaces, right? There's something about that as a really, it seems to me, crucial place for working through oneself, but also one's relationship to whatever form you land upon, right? So there's this way that I think we can rethink Morrison if we think of her in this, emerging from this theatrical world and passion. She was a dancer too. She trained in community dance theaters. So there's this kind of really corporeal, choreographic sensibility that I think then we can see in her work, in the repetition, in the looping, kind of in the careful attention to all kinds of gestures, right? Which I think really live underneath and in the text.
Yeah, for sure. This is a question specific to the film. Can you talk a little bit about the animation style in the film, those beautiful blue animations that invoke an eye blinking, that invoke water, that, you know, flash right after we see the door of no return, that invoke the door of no return, just this really evocative animation that's there. And can you talk about the process of creating that?
Yeah. So this is called, what is it called? Direct animation. Analog animation. So I am painting and etching and drawing right onto the surface of the 16 millimeter film. And oftentimes it's a pretty laborious, painstaking, meticulous process, but I kind of like that about it. You know, I get to sit there for a while, 3 months maybe, and listen to a really wonderful talk, maybe some Horton Spillers, maybe I put on some Don Cherry, smoke a little bit, you know, and really get into the vibe, you know, and it opens up this space of deep thought, but actually unthought, right? No thought, where I can just vibe. It's just my hand and the materials. And it is so integral to my practice. I don't know how long I'll continue to do it because it really takes a toll, you know, like I'm feeling my body in very interesting ways. Now I'm pushing 40. So I don't know if I'll, I know someone's like, shut the hell up, you're 40. I don't know how long I'll keep doing it, but it's, to me, it's so important because it does draw a distinction between the work, and I'm constantly trying to draw a distinction. As much as I'm trying to make an overlap between myself and my colleagues who make films, other Black women filmmakers specifically, it is important to make distinctions, right? Because what happens is the critics or people who write, or perhaps even programmers or curators, like to group you up sometimes if they haven't done their reading by things as superficial as, oh, they're all Black. There we have it, right? When in reality, they're all Black experimental filmmakers. And there are degrees of experimentation. There are types and forms of experimentation that are more palatable than other forms of experimentation, right? If it's poetic and it's quiet, people are gonna love that. But if it's jarring and it's cutting and we're dragging white supremacy, well, yeah, it might not have as much of an audience or it might not get as big. But, we're here to make the work that we're supposed to make. And for me, it's really about a personalized touch. The hand of the filmmaker is present. I'm not trying to hide that in the cuts or in the painting, right? I want you to see that this is a handmade thing. It's an object. It operates in this space almost like a sculpture. It's sitting here with you. And so one of the ways that I'm able to invoke that, it's kind of palpable feeling, this effective response, is because of that handmade portion.
And then this is a continual question of this process question. When we spoke about your work a few years ago, you had said something that struck me so much. You said, I make my own archive of films. And can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so because I've been making films for so long, and because I've been working on one project for so long, there's an autobiographical moment that's coming. The works that I made earlier are able to be folded into the work that is happening now, right? A lot of the works, similar to Morrison in a way, right? If she's thinking about, a play first or a novella first, but parts of that early work, early iterations of the work are still in the film. And it's similar, right? It's modular is how I call it. There might be an element of this film, say the animation, say the Shirley Temple animation, that might show up in another work. It might show up in a sculpture. And that's the same thing with, I want to, like, Giverny document, for example. The Giverny document started off as Giverny 1, Négresson Impériale. And then it ballooned into this 40-minute thing. And then it ballooned into this 3-channel thing, right? So we're kind of building on from one thing to the next. We're building on what we've already created. We're laying our own foundation, citing and referencing ourselves as much as we're citing and referencing the others.
And then this is I'm going to ask one more process question about the film in particular, and then we'll sort of talk larger. Oh, and then I wanted to ask you too about Morrison's sort of creating of an archive for herself of collecting.
Yeah. Jatavi, I love what you just said about the modular language that you use. And there's something also I think about like what it across each work that feels really important. So this endurance, survival. So Morrison's really interesting because she has this collection that lives at Princeton of her essays and her unpublished works and drafts and things like that. But then she also was really attentive to what I described as, did I go out?
Yeah.
Out? In? Okay. Of creating a archive almost for every book. So each book has like family trees for every individual character and really detailed maps of where the folks in the book lived and research files and like chapters on a single flower, right? So each book really has this robust life that demands an archive and that emerged from an archive. So there's this real dual sense of her understanding of the archive. I have to collect my own material and I know future researchers are going to use it, and I'm building my own archive for every individual book. And like Paradise, which is my favorite book, has so many characters and each character has a genealogy, a family tree, like a file. And so they have to have this archive to emerge from. This is really
Yeah.
pitchy. Yeah. It's okay. We'll roll with it.
That's fascinating. Also, Paradise is also my favorite.
It's so good.
Morrison novel.
The
It's really
attention to
good.
detail for
Yes.
Morrison is pretty wild.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, and then this is my, I think, final question about the film specifically. So you have chosen to include these clips from social media, these clips of, blackfishing, if you want to call it that, and also these clips of, let's call them problematic Black women, I guess. Icons of problematic Black womanhood. We have Azalea Banks, we have our little Kim, and we have our Thandi Newton. And so can you talk a little bit about creating that collage, about bringing all those things together, and specifically about choosing to use images and video from social media?
Yes. So to me, one of the central, and to Mama Coco or Dr. Kokava Selassie, one of the central themes of the book is this idea of the gaze, right? This dominant gaze, which is not a Black gaze, right? It's a dominant gaze that has power, and it shapes how you see yourself. It shapes how you perceive the world. That gaze is a storytelling gaze. It structures reality. And so to me, it felt like the internet, it feels like a contemporary iteration of the gaze, like one of the ways in which the gaze is showing up now. So we're on this thing all the time. We're scrolling so much that we forget that we're actually looking at something, like we're actually spectators. My friend called it the vortex of the scroll. You kind of get lost in this thing. So for me, when thinking through the gaze, it was important for me to include these clips from the internet. I was locked in. We were all locked in 21 and 20, and this is when I was making this film during the pandemic. So I was clocking crazy hours on the internet, 12 hours. Anxiety through the roof. I mean, I was just scrolling. I was saving beauty tutorials, not going nowhere. Where you going? Beauty tutorials. Oh, I'm gonna buy this. I'm gonna go here. Just saving things and living vicariously, but also, of course, seeing all of the various forms of violence, or keeping up with the current events. There's a sort of literacy that comes with being online chronically, right? There's a shorthand. There's a way that you talk, because it's what we're saying on Twitter, right? There's a song that because it's a song that's proliferating all over the algorithm. So I decided to begin to choose clips that were, in my opinion, there was a connection between those clips and what was occurring in the book. So each clip, you can draw some sort of conceptual link or conceptual tie based on a character, perhaps, an event, or a theme. So it was important for me to have Kim in here, and it's not a drag, don't get it twisted. This is very much in defense of little Kim, right? Because I hear people always kind of look down on Kim, Black people too. Oh, you see what she did to her face? That's so sad, da, 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 da. And it's like, no, that's not a critical analysis of what's happening. The analysis is, why would she do that? What sort of effects of the society would have someone feel like, just like Morrison said about Piccola, why would she want those eyes? Why would she feel like she needs to do that? What in the environment, in the weather, as Sharp would say, is making her think that this is the right move? Also, Kim is a survivor, right? She has been brutalized in her face. So this was her also attempting to reconstruct. Also, mind your goddamn business. If people want to, if you want to change, if somebody wants to change their face, then, who am I to say no, right? I'm not anti-body modification necessarily. Do what you want to do. You got to go to bed at night. When you die, you're going to die alone. Anyway, it's up to you. So I got no heaven or hell to put you in. But, Kim, it was in defense of Kim. It was like, no, make sure you know what you're talking about when we think about Kim. So it was important for me to put her up here with Morrison, who's also talking about her work, talking about process, talking about what inspires her. What are the fears that she had, right? So, just adding a little bit more depth back into this iconic figure. Also, Kim is Kim. I know, we're in 22? 23, Lord have mercy. 23, and Nicki Minaj kind of reigns supreme, right? But it's like, who came before? right? You have to honor, and please, Nikki Stans, don't come for me. I don't want no smoke with the barbs. But all I'm saying is honor that genealogy, honor the trajectory. Somebody came before her, right? And that woman is extremely influential, and she deserves her flowers, just like your fave. Azalea is a different story because she is problematic. She's a problematic fave of mine, and I've been called an Azalea apologist and by my trans friends. And it's serious because she has said some really ridiculous things in the past that I cannot stand behind. Yeah. But I do feel like Azalea is a model of the irredeemable woman. There are many different types of women, and it depends on how you look and how you behave. So respectability and desirability that will put you in the realm of redeemability or irredeemable. And I think because she is dark-skinned, because she is mentally unstable, right? Because she is outside of the bounds of respectability, she practices a traditional African technology, a spiritual technology, which Mama Coco practices. She's a priestess of Obatala, which I practice, Oshun, Mferefun, Yemonja, right? These things put you outside of the realm of respectability. They put you in the realm of, well, you know, and so to me, she's saying shit earlier, right? When she was talking about the digital minstrelsy, when she was talking about cultural appropriation, when she talks about colorism, whenever she has a critique of power, you can listen and there's something there, right? So I don't know. I just feels like she has been cast aside. And I wonder, I don't know, if she were a man, would it have been so easy to cast her aside? If she were, you know, a light-skinned fave, would it be so easy for us to cast her aside? I don't know. These are the questions. So in the clip, she's beseeching Beyonce. Beyonce, she's beseeching her, right? There's a power differential. And her...
About the song Brown Skin Girl.
About the song. Say the name of the song?
Brown Skin Girl, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll end there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. You were talking a little bit, you touched on that end of it a little bit about spirituality. And I want to talk about the spirituality in Morrison's novels. Can you say the name of the scholar again that's in the film?
Dr. Kokava Selassie, Mama Coco to me.
Dr. Kokava Selassie. She says this really profound thing about the Black experience being one of doubles, the double gang of the doubles. Of course, you know, like the most famous, you know, invocation of that is Du Bois, like the double consciousness in the veil. This idea of doubles, which is so resonant, and I think a lot of us, if we look back into our family history, can probably find traces of what she's speaking of. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about just overall how spirituality affects your artistic practice. And then specifically this question of the double of moving between worlds, of moving between veils.
Yeah. So I was raised in a Southern Black Pentecostal household. So, you know, church 3-4 times a week. You know, you're there all day on Sunday, you're going Wednesday, you're going to choir rehearsal, you might be there on Saturday even. You know, like it was the life. We were supposed to be saved, sanctified, and filled with the blood of the Lamb, right? Consecrated. We were different. We had to be kept, in many ways, kind of kept apart from people. I was telling a friend that we were not allowed to listen to hip hop or R&B, any secular music at all. This is during the 90s, right? When shit was popping. So we had to sneak to listen to Boys to Men. Yeah. Brandy. But like also, you know, Tupac too. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it structured my mind in terms of, to me, the idea of an immaterial world or an immaterial realm is not strange. It was always from the beginning. My mother would always acknowledge, oh, so-and-so got a spirit, you know. She's got a spirit of this going on. Or there's a spirit of whatever hovering over her life. We need to pray. You know, I was just surrounded by older Black women in the church. And so it already primed me for this opening to the numinous, to the woo-woo-woo, the two-headedness. And I won't go too personal, but, you know, even as a child, you know, I would see stuff and hear stuff, and, you know, y'all don't care about any of that, but, you know, it would just, just want to give all the tea. Like, there was already a kind of little, you know, a little touch of fire already, right? And so if you're going to church and you're seeing people get the Holy Ghost and speak in tongues, it's nothing. It's nothing. And so for me, of course, I switched. I'm no longer like a devout Jesus follower, although we acknowledge Jesus as a venerated ancestor. But, you know, he's not necessarily my Lord and Savior. I'm that old time religion, something even older, right? Something Blacker and primordial and, you know, way back. And it is something that my ancestors have done. It's something that I am reclaiming in a kind of decolonial act, right? Of centering myself in a reality that predates enslavement, that survived enslavement. And it does indeed shape my creative life. When I need help, there's prayer, right? When I need help, there are rituals to do. There are things that I can do to protect myself, to inspire, to shore up, to strengthen. I lean on this tradition, and I make sure that they are acknowledged. Because, you know, I didn't get here by myself.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And then to Morrison's work, I mean, Morrison famously included ghosts in nearly every single novel, spoke about haunting constantly.
That's right.
The idea of haunting is a motif throughout all of her work.
Yes.
The idea that you're communicating with this other world, this other time. Can you talk a little bit about how that shows up in her archives?
So interesting. You're right. Yes, there is haunting in every single text. It's also funny because I always think of her, I mean, she converted to Catholicism, so I always think of her as somebody who's so deeply Catholic in her work too, even if I have a friend who has this theory that the Catholicism shows up as kind of excess and kind of a particular kind of aesthetics and poetics. But there does seem to also be this other, as you're saying, attention to a world that is there, but that we don't necessarily always have access to, right? And sometimes that's kind of metaphorical, like the haunting of the past, but also it really is a presence that's very real, right? And then we have characters like Baby Suggs and Beloved, who is a preacher, right? And was based on a real woman in the archive. So I think, you know, it shows up in these quiet ways in the archive and in the collection, right? It might be a reference to a woman, as in the case of Beloved, mentioned in the Margaret Garner clipping that she based the novel on. It said, and her mother-in-law was a preacher, right? So it may be just this trace that then she builds out a creative life and world for this character. Or it might just be these quiet or quieter research practices that we don't even recognize in the book, right? When she was writing Paradise, she did all of this research on Brazilian religious practices and indigenous practices. And I can't figure out how that shows up in the book, right? But there's something about going to these places, these spiritual corners, that feels really important to landing her where she needs to get, right? So it's not always tangible, which I think really, it makes sense when you're thinking about thinking about the spiritual, that where do you locate or find that in the archive? I think it's not always as material, but it's a presence that's there.
Interesting. That's fascinating. That's fascinating that she was interested in sort of like Brazilian practices.
Yeah, I don't know where, yeah.
It's fair. That's wonderful. I'm going to switch modes a little bit and talk about, sort of go back to talking about the creation of The Bluest Eye. And you shared with us before this a letter from the archives that was from her editor for The Bluest Eye, who is not the same editor who edited the later books. The editor for The Bluest Eye, can you say his name?
Alan Rinsler.
Alan Rinsler, who's not the same editor for the later books. Right. And there's letters back and forth between them when she's drafting The Bluest Eye. And there's this one letter where he's giving her edits and sort of, standard edits, but then he says he doesn't really understand the ending. He doesn't think the ending is working. And then at the very bottom, there's a note from him where he says, I really want to visit Howard. When, where, how? How can I get there?
She was like, I'm here. Whatever.
Yeah, which made me really laugh, sort of at that eagerness. But I wanted to bring it up because sort of Morrison herself was an editor. She talked a lot about who she was writing for as a writer. And she has that famous critique of Invisible Man, Invisible to Whom, sort of like who are you writing to, who are you addressing with your work? But also famously, her novels were all edited by white men, which is expected. I mean, she was the only Black woman editor at the time. She can't edit herself, so it is expected for the time period that she was in. But I want to talk sort of about that tension within her work. And how that appears in her archives. I think you shared with me when I spoke to you a few months ago about some letters between her and Hortense Spillers, I think. And Hortense Spillers acting as one of her editors, and Morrison sort of writing to Spillers, sort of saying, I'm working on this play about Emmett Till and I'm not sure it's working, and the white director is telling me it's not working, but I'm not sure if he's not getting it if he's white. And Spillers kind of being like, no, it's not working. like that kind of like back and forth conversation that happens, and that questioning, I think, that happens if you are a Black woman artist and you're trying to figure out how to parse the feedback that you're getting, knowing that the gatekeepers around you often will not necessarily share your particular identity.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when you said she couldn't edit herself, but I think she did.
She did edit herself,
right?
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think like that's what she ended up doing, and I think there's this. There's an interview, I think from like the mid 80s, where she's like, people don't understand, or they can't reconcile that I'm an editor and a writer. Like for some reason, those are not things that people can think about in the same clause. And she's like, but it's so natural. And even in your film, right, she's like, I'm a reader first. Like, so there's something about the reading, the editing. And so we see, and I think this is partially because she was working with white editors. I don't have evidence for that, but that she has a deep attention to revision and self-editing that I do not possess as a writer. I'm like, give it to my editor, tell me what to do, right? And it could have been that she's having those conversations, right? But there's such an attention to editing and a durational practice. Like it happens over time, and you can tell by different colors that she's using. But I think the moment that you and I were talking about that I was referencing is that, we also see in more casual or everyday kinds of interactions with other Black women like Toni Cade Bambara, right, who she had a deep friendship and writing correspondence with, that they're kind of talking about the work, right? Even as they're talking about friendship and what they're doing in the day and going on trips and blah, 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 there's also this way that they're always kind of talking about the work. And I think that in these like moments of friendship and correspondence, right, you see a deep attention to care for each other's work, that I would name as a particular kind of editorial practice or collaboration, so that you can't always rely on the institution or the person who is like editor proper with the editor hat on, even as they are really, really useful, right? And I love, the moment where she says often, right, I write outside of the white gaze, but she also says, I have to summon it, but not be suffocated by it, right? So there's a way that it's there, but it's not going to crush you, right? How do you live in relation to it, but not have it be the thing that's directing your practice, which I also think is an editorial kind of dilemma, maybe.
Yeah. And Jatavia, can you talk about that tension of knowing that you are creating work, how you balance feedback, and how you create for the audiences who you wish to create for, but also knowing that you are within this larger institution that we call the art world that has a very different agenda than perhaps what yours would be?
Totally. So I think, I mean, this idea of editing, and first of all, having that kind of self-edit, you ready to edit all of the films that I've made so far, having to be both director and the editor, it sharpens the gaze a little bit. Also, the group of people, right, that you were talking about in terms of Morrison, like these readers that are a part of your own community. So there are watchers, there are viewers who are part of my own community. Of course, I used to be a member of the New Negroes Film Society, and that's one thing that we would do. We would share our works with each other, and we would critique, and we would workshop, etc. Now, though, I also just have friends, people who make films as well, folks who are other Black women. Sometimes they're not women, but they make work that is of the same ilk, I'll say, or we have a certain sensibility. So I know they're not going to come out of left field with something, right? Well, what does this mean? Although they do challenge, right? They do challenge me. So to me, it's important to share the work with others and not simply rely on my own understanding. Then there's this idea of like, I literally just lost my thought. I think it's important to consider who you're talking to and what you're saying. This is something that I tell young people when I go and I have these kind of college and university talks. And this is indeed something that I got from Toni Morrison, as well as someone like Simone Lee, is to understand who your audience is. And that doesn't mean that you're restricting your work from anyone, but you have a very specific group of people in mind. And I'll never forget, I made a film about Simone Lee when I was an undergrad. I reached out to her randomly. I did not know this woman. I emailed her and I was like, can I come to your studio? And she said, yeah. And it was really wild. And literally, she welcomed me for like 2 days, and she was very busy getting ready for Art Basel. This was like maybe 2013, 2012 maybe. And I sat with her and she spoke a word that it was so necessary to me. I absolutely needed to hear it at the time because I was kind of going through it, creatively. I was being met with power. I was being met with power. Power was saying, you need to do it this way. But my spirit was saying, you need to do what you need to do, right? And you're paying all this money, so make the work that you want to make. So she looked at me and she was like, I was like, things are really tough in school. It's hard. She was just kind of laughed at me like, you think that's going to end? I got people come in my studio right now and laugh. You know what I'm saying? They don't necessarily take it all seriously, but you have to take it very seriously and you have to understand exactly who you're talking to, right? And so she opens up the film by saying, well, I choose to open up the film by her saying, my audience is Black women. And I don't think that that's a small audience, right? And that kind of, it was just like a kind of shot to the heart a little bit. It doesn't mean that no one else can watch it. It doesn't mean that no one else can't get anything from it. There's lots for everybody, but it shapes what I'm saying. When I put that at the forefront of my mind, it shapes what type of clips I'm going to choose. It shapes how I'm going to edit. It shapes who I'm going to choose to interview. It shapes how it's going to look, right? And that's not a small group of people. There are millions of Black people all over the world speaking hundreds of languages, right? They're all different, a generational line, right? So that's not a small group. And what happens when you centralize that group and you speak directly to them and you make something that is so specific to them? Yeah. It can definitely have universal reverberations, right? It can definitely hit for people who are not necessarily a part of that group. In fact, it might hit all the more. So I don't know. I just think about who are you talking to and what are you saying?
Yeah. I'm going to butcher this Morrison quote, but she speaks about this, about why the specificity of talking about Blackness in the Midwest. And she sort of talks about how, no one says that James Joyce is limiting his potential by speaking about Irishness. Nobody says that, all these writers who are so specific to their specific community that we understand and are asked to read as universal. And there shouldn't be that wall around Blackness. and that it's not a minor note or sort of like a regional piece. It's part of the human experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And, what happens when you relinquish your own reality and step into the reality of someone like me? It could be an emancipatory journey for you, right? You could be transformed. So,
when we were talking about your work here, this is my last question, and then we'll open it up to other questions. But when we were talking about your work here, you had mentioned that Morrison's Nobel lecture was really important to you, and I'm just going to read a quick quote from her
Go
lecture, and then you can talk a little bit about how it worked into the work here. She said, "The vitality of language lies in its ability to limn the actual, imagined, impossible lives of its speakers, readers, writers. Although its poise is sometimes in displacing experience, it is not a substitute for it. It arcs towards the place where meaning may lie." So I'm wondering if you can talk just really quickly about how the Nobel lecture sort of informed your work here.
yeah, totally. The Nobel lecture, I listened to the Nobel lecture probably like maybe 15 times repeatedly because it's so beautiful. She's telling a story, literally she's like once upon a time, and it's gorgeous. But this idea of language is what she's trying to get at. And the fact that there is no definitive language, there is no definitive end to the story. We do language, that's the quote that most people would say, right? We do language as a way to make meaning of our lives, but it is not all encompassing. We are trying to make meaning of something that we don't understand. So we try to apply language to it, but ultimately, language cannot completely encapsulate something like slavery or genocide or even falling in love, right? We're arcing towards, right? Its facility is in its reach, I believe she says. I could be misquoting her. It's in the effort. So to me, the work that I'm doing is my attempt of positing a new language, like a cinematic language. And there are things that are familiar, and then there are things that are unfamiliar to you. But I'm hoping to get at something that is very much alive. In the talk, she makes a distinction between a living and a dead language. And dead language, she's not defining as a language that's no longer spoken. A dead language, she says, is the language of power. It shields despots. It is censoring and censored. It is disabling and disabled. It's stodgy, it's rigid. It forecloses upon knowledge, right? And so I begin to think about, oh, well, okay, if I thought about cinema within the context of what she's saying, would that mean that the cinema that I see all the time, is this a dead language? Right? Because I'm trying to have a new language. I'm trying to have a living language. A living language is not afraid to change forms. It's not afraid of new ideas and new stories. It opens up the realm of possibility of knowledge. It doesn't foreclose upon it. It opens up the opportunities for others to come in and tell stories that have never been told before. So, the use of language as a tool of power, the use of language as a kind of intergenerational mediation device, because that's what the talk was about, is this kind of intergenerational confrontation. I encourage you all to listen to the talk. It's on YouTube. It's incredible. But yeah, I'm just attempting to get at the thing that we don't have words for.
Yeah. Thank you. That's it. Those are all the questions. Thank you so much.
Do y'all have questions?
Yeah. I'll open it up to the audience if anyone has questions in these.
We can only do a few, okay?
Yeah.
And we have a mic here. I'll bring it.
And we have a mic there.
Are there none?
I guess you said it all.
Oh, okay.
Hello. So I was thinking about several things while you all were talking. And one of the things that I was thinking about is, you mentioned doubleness, but what does it mean to be split? Especially when it comes to making stuff. So I wanted you to talk, because yes, there's a doubleness, and we think about double consciousness and things of that nature, but what does it mean to be split in half? And like Jatava, you and I are the same people. Like I grew up Jehovah's Witness in Tennessee, and I'm a queer Black man. So, this idea of like how do we deal with that? How do we process that? And also, I do love Azealia Banks. I love her. I love her because I love I like her honesty. Like she's honest. And she's like traumatized like everybody else. Like, and she's honest about like how she responds to things, how she responds to being a queer Black woman in this world. So that's all I have to say. Anyway.
Okay. The Split. Thank you, Bakar. Bakar is a really wonderful poet, by the way. We used to wait tables together in Soho. The Split. I think making things helps me join the split, if that makes some sense. Making things is a kind of restorative, reparative process. Sometimes the split comes out to play when you're making, but in the end, there is this merging, right? A wholeness that comes about. And I'm speaking very abstractly because that's what it kind of feels like. I definitely feel like there are multiple selves operating at any given period of time, especially if I'm working on multiple projects, and each project demands a different Jatavia. It demands that I show up in a different way. I sometimes try to bring not necessarily a formula, but techniques, of course, and maybe thoughts and ideas from one project to the next. And sometimes the project is like, no, right? That was for so-and-so. That's not for me. You need to show up new here, right? So I don't know. I think in some regard, the split is necessary. The fact that I'm able to kind of dip into one world, the fact that I've been walking this tightrope walk of identity since I was a kid, like the deep code switch, you feel what I'm saying? Like in some ways it aids the work, right? Because it's a sophisticated defense mechanism, but oftentimes it doesn't aid the work, right? I just outsource it to my therapist, babes. I don't really know what else to say. I'm sincere. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Wonderful work, Jatavia.
Thank you.
I'm curious about your process in terms of the performance we saw earlier with Autumn. And, there was you talk about unmasking and doubling, and there was a lot of sort of a text, a familiarity, and then this sort of intonation and how that sort of created a story within using just certain phrases. And I would just love to hear you speak more to that process. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I really have to thank and shout out Autumn because, yes. Autumn Night is a master at this. They do this all over the world. I met her in Venice, and it's crazy because people were like, "You don't know Autumn Night? You're both from Texas. You're like the same person. You don't know Autumn Night?" And I'm like, no. So I finally met Autumn Night in Venice at Loophole of Retreat and was blown away. And she demanded that I join her up here today. That was not the plan. The plan was for her to perform, for me to be on a panel, and for y'all to watch the film, and then we all go home. But I appreciate her because we come from the same place and we have similar experiences. And she knew if I just pulled her out, if I just poked and prodded and pulled her out of her comfort zone, it was going to be something that was necessary and transformative. And I appreciate her. So I have a background in performance, but I haven't really performed in well over a decade. And it's something that I miss terribly for reasons that I explained earlier, what it does for the self, what it does for the body, what it does for the mind. And I'm just so glad to be kind of dipping my toe back into it. But the process really was us thinking about the text, thinking about our own lives, which are similar, right? Not the same, but a similar point of reference. And then vibing. It was really just a vibe, it was really just a vibe and listening and responding to the other person. So I can't really give you very much more than that because, I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing up here, girl. One more.
One more.
There's one woman here.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I came a little late, so forgive me if you already spoke about the marigolds. Did you speak about that? So I had a question. When you threw it out, people, I don't know if you were in the moment, but people laughed and some people were taken by the flowers. And I thought, I wanted to know why you decided to use them in the way you do. And I see them in the back as well. Marigolds are used Day of the Dead on altars. I think about Black folks and flowers. I would love to hear more about Toni Morrison and her use. She talks about flowers, she talks about trees. There's something about like how we throw flowers in the time of death at cemeteries and also at weddings. And I feel like what happens in between. And I don't know if you had any thoughts about that and their use today. Were you summoning? Was it just ornamentation? Was it just a moment, or was there real significance to that? And then the other part of my question is something totally different. It's about your performance. So in language, this could be off, but I feel like we kind of missed the moment when the term ebonics came out, because I'm listening to you and I've listened to Arthur Jafa recently and other writers and people in art talk about language and Black language and how amazing it is and how we're just now honoring it and digging into it. Do you think we missed a moment with ebonics that was something, because there was I feel like there's a kernel of what we're doing there that was in that moment, but we were maybe too steeped in respectability politics to see it. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts about that.
I think you may have a point there, but let's talk about the flowers first. The flowers, marigolds, are mentioned throughout the book. They are, main image system in the book. Quiet as it's kept, there were no marigolds in the autumn of 1941.
So, yeah.
And it was because we thought Piccola's father had raped her, and the kids thought that the lack of flowers was because of this horrific sexual assault that had occurred. And they thought it was, if we plant them, maybe they will come. And oh, they're not coming. Is it because of us, or is it because this horrendous thing just happened? So for me, I wanted to counter that. There is a surplus of flowers in the film. We see flowers, marigolds on Morrison. They're popping up as she's talking. There's marigolds in the space. I wanted to give Morrison her flowers. I wanted to give Piccola and Claudia and Frida their flowers. It's never just ornamental, but the fact that they're beautiful and they smell good, that helps. Also, Oshun, one of the Orisha, loves a marigold, loves a sunflower. So flowers for the Orisha always. They're just ritualistic, not simply aesthetic. Also, Morrison's birthday is tomorrow. So flowers for Morrison. We lift up Toni Morrison's name and her tremendous contributions. Ebonics. When I was a child, I think ebonics came out. I think they were saying ebonics when I was a child. And I definitely think that you're onto something when you say respectability politics, but I do want to hear what the rest of the panel has to say about this too. Because, I speak in many different ways, right? There's a real facility with not simply language, but performance of language. And it was because I was an actor, but it was also because I grew up around a bunch of white folks, right? So I know how to talk. Right. And it is indeed a kind of mask. And as Mama Coco said, you've got to be careful with masks because you need to know what's under it, right? Who's the actual being. And it took me a long time to get to the actual being. But I do think that there's something to be said around a shame associated with a certain type of speaking. I'm Southern as well, right? People, when you hear a Southern accent, not everybody thinks it's charming. Some people think, oh, you sound dumb. And I knew very early, right, that we didn't want to sound dumb. I knew very early that I didn't need these people thinking that I'm dumb. You feel me? So there is a kind of like, again, a sophisticated defense mechanism, a way of survival. As Mama Coco talks about, you're thinking one way and you're behaving another way, and a subterfuge. And, we can't talk too much about subterfuge publicly because then it wouldn't be subterfuge. Wonderful. Others?
I was thinking about the flowers and plants, and the other thing I would just add quickly is that it also is like how we relate to place and space, right? It's like such a tactile relationship to land. It's how we kind of recognize where we are often. So I think that's also the important place that it plays in Morrison's work and craft, right? You're creating a place, the geography, the geology, the landscape, from the flowers to the trees, right? And then it's also how we become alienated from a space. So summoning that vocabulary of plants and flowers. Language, I mean, it was such an odd time when Ebonics was out. Odd because it was also like peak like rhetoric of multiculturalism. So it was all about like assimilation.
Yeah.
So that seemed to be really a big part of it. This was like the melting pot moment. It was also like not outside of the war on drugs and DARE and all of that. So there was like really this like criminalization of Black life and language that was really particular to that moment that Ebonics, I think, got co-opted as a part of, right? If there's so many wars against Black personhood and being, war on drugs, criminalization, right? And then the dream of multiculturalism of the 80s, that I think it got co-opted within that anxiety.
Not unlike woke,
Yeah.
Right.
right?
Yes.
Woke
Yes.
was something that
Right.
it's
100%.
It's not what it
Yes.
is now, right?
Yes.
When we were saying woke with each other several years ago, we were
Right.
talking about something very specific. Now woke has become an arrow, right?
It feels like a parody whenever I say it. Yeah.
It's been recontextualized. It's been and again, with language, how language can be used for power, right? So,
Well,
laugh, mother, laugh.
thank you to our panelists. Autumn, Kaitlyn, Jatavia, and to Autumn Winter, too.
Thank you to all y'all
Yeah.
for showing up, and to the folks who work at the gallery. Thank you for being here. The folks who run the AV.
Yes.
The folks who are gonna sweep up these marigolds. It'll be me. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
This was really cute.
This was wonderful.